The town of Coldhaven lay at the very edge of the world, or so it seemed. In the northernmost reaches of a country where the sun barely lingered on the horizon, Coldhaven was more an afterthought than a place of note. It was a village lost in time, where the people lived in isolation, far from any modern conveniences. The townspeople rarely spoke of outsiders. Travelers were never seen as guests but as visitors with fleeting interest. There were whispers, always in hushed tones, about Coldhaven, rumors that trickled out of the village but were quickly dismissed. No one paid heed to the warnings. For as long as he could remember, Daniel Trask had been obsessed with the concept of isolation. What made places like Coldhaven so different from anywhere else? What strange force kept people bound to such remote corners of the world? In a moment of curiosity and skepticism, he had come to Coldhaven to uncover the truth for himself. Little did he know that his presence would be the catalyst for a revelation that no one in the village could escape. As he arrived at the village on a late autumn evening, he couldn't shake the feeling that the air itself was different here, charged with something unseen. A suffocating silence hung around Coldhaven, as if the land had not breathed in centuries. The villagers paid him little mind at first, though he caught their sideways glances, their slow movements, as if they were all part of an ancient rhythm that Daniel could not grasp. It was a strange, languid air to the place, a subtle oppression that wrapped around him like a fog, impossible to ignore. The streets were narrow and crooked, lined with houses that appeared older than their foundations should allow. The windows were dark, and the few that were lit offered only a dull flicker, as if the life inside had long since faded. It was as if the village had not changed in centuries, trapped in some ageless stasis that neither light nor time could penetrate. At night, when the town was silent and still, Daniel would often hear low murmurs beneath the floorboards of the room where he stayed. At first, he thought they were his imagination, the creaking of old timber settling. But as the days wore on, the whispers grew louder, and he began to understand that they weren't coming from the house at all. They were coming from beneath the earth itself. Curiosity gnawed at him. He began asking the villagers about the strange sounds, but the answers were vague, as if the question itself were a taboo. They would look away, fidget nervously, and offer nothing more than cryptic warnings. One old woman, whose eyes had seen the weight of time itself, told him, "Not all things should be known. Some questions have answers that would drive a man mad." When he pressed her further, she clutched her hands tightly and stared into the darkened street, as if afraid of something unseen. Her voice dropped to a mere whisper, "The earth is restless. It knows we are here, but it is no longer ours." The murmurs beneath him were not just noises, but a presence. Daniel felt the ground beneath his feet vibrate slightly at night, like something immense and distant was stirring. As the days passed, the air grew colder and the nights longer. The villagers seemed to grow thinner, gaunter, as if their very bodies were wasting away. Their once welcoming eyes turned dull, as if they were staring at something beyond him, something that filled their gaze with a deep, unknowable sorrow. It became impossible to ignore. There was something wrong in Coldhaven, something older than the village, older than the people. Something that breathed beneath the earth, in the caverns and deep fissures that stretched like veins beneath the town. Unable to resist, Daniel began to explore. He ventured deeper into the town, searching for clues, anything that could explain the unsettling atmosphere that had overtaken Coldhaven. The town was built upon an ancient ridge, where the soil was dark, almost black, and crumbled under his feet like ash. The further he ventured, the more the air thickened, as if something was pressing down on him from all sides. There were no paths leading into the surrounding forests. Instead, the trees stood in an oppressive arrangement like sentinels. They bent unnaturally, their branches reaching out like clawed fingers. The air was dense with the scent of decay, and each step he took felt like it was leading him closer to something inevitable, something that called to him from the shadows. The ground trembled violently one evening as Daniel walked along the old dirt road, and the whispers turned into low, guttural growls, as if the earth itself was waking from a long slumber. The town seemed to shudder in response. The buildings groaned, and the wind, once still, began to howl, carrying with it the unmistakable sound of something vast and ancient moving beneath the surface. The townspeople gathered in the square, staring at the ground in unison, their faces twisted in terror. Their eyes were wide and vacant, filled with a knowledge that no human mind should bear. The whispers had grown to screams, low and mournful, as if an entire civilization was crying out from below. Daniel's heart raced, his breath shallow. The earth was alive beneath him, a living entity far older than any man or god. He understood then that Cold Haven was no mere town. It was a tomb, a grave built over something far darker than he had imagined. The murmurs were not just sounds. They were voices, the last remnants of those who had once lived in Cold Haven, trapped beneath the earth, imprisoned by something that was neither alive nor dead. Something that had long ago made a pact with the town's founders. The town itself was a prison, an anchor to keep this ancient being bound beneath the earth. And now the earth was stirring again. Panic swept through the villagers as the ground beneath their feet cracked open. The ancient whispers grew louder, rising to a deafening crescendo as if the earth itself was about to swallow them whole. Daniel could feel it then, the presence that had been watching him, waiting for him to uncover the truth. The shadows around him seemed to stretch and shift, growing long and distorted as a great pressure built from deep within the ground. The whispers now became words, clear, distinct, speaking a language so ancient it was beyond comprehension. His mind could not hold on to the knowledge they conveyed, and the air around him thickened, pressing in as if the very fabric of reality was beginning to warp. The ground beneath Cold Haven buckled, and from the cracks, something enormous rose. It was not a creature with form or flesh, but something that existed between dimensions, an entity older than the stars themselves. Its presence was overwhelming, its form a swirling mass of shadow and light, incomprehensible to the human mind. Daniel felt his sanity unravel as it loomed over him, its whispers now voices in his head, clawing at his very soul. He understood then that this thing was not bound by time or space. It had watched the world grow and decay, waiting for the moment when Cold Haven's very existence would serve as its release. In the final moments before his mind shattered, Daniel saw Cold Haven for what it truly was. A prison, a decoy built to keep this ancient being contained. But it was too late. The village, the people, everything that had ever been, was now merely a gateway for something far darker to return. As the entity enveloped the town, everything in Cold Haven was consumed. Its past, its people, and the very land itself, vanishing beneath the weight of an ancient hunger. The earth grew silent again, but this time there were no whispers. There was only the darkness, the absence of all things, as if Cold Haven had never existed at all. The entity, finally free, had no need for words anymore. It had what it wanted, the world, and nothing would ever be the same again. If you've survived the terror, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the Nightmare Vault family. There's more cosmic horror, eldritch beings, and nightmarish stories waiting just around the corner. Like, comment, and share your thoughts. What's the most terrifying thing you've encountered in the void? Keep your eyes open and remember, the nightmare is always watching.